You need to focus. This is your future. This behavior is simply unacceptable.
Amara Carter, a bright black girl with dreams of becoming an astronaut, faces humiliation when her teacher, Mr. Keller, mocks her dream and pushes the class to laugh at her, turning her passion into shame. But silence breaks when she finds the courage to tell her mother. Dr. Amara Carter, a brilliant NASA aerospace engineer who refuses to let her daughter's light be dimmed. As tensions rise, Amara endures classmates' whispers, confronts Keller's bias, and finally stands tall at the school science fair, where her groundbreaking space simulation project leaves judges speechless. In a dramatic parent-teacher showdown, Keller's arrogance crumbles when Yvonne reveals her NASA role, exposing his prejudice. Whispers turn into complaints, Keller's authority collapses, and Amara claims victory. Winning first place and proving resilience beats ridicule. With poetic justice, Keller fades into irrelevance while Amara, medal in hand, gazes at the night sky unchained, fearless, and ready to chase the stars that once felt out of reach. The classroom smelled faintly of old chalk and disinfectant. A place where dreams were supposed to be nurtured but often suffocated. Amara sat in the back row, clutching her notebook. Her heart pounded as Mr. Keller paced across the front of the room, his voice booming. "So, class," Keller announced, marker in hand, "let's talk about the future. What do you all want to be when you grow up?" Hands shot up. "Doctor," one boy shouted. "Lawyer," another chimed. "Football star," said a third, earning laughter. Keller nodded approvingly, scribbling the words on the board. Then his gaze swept the room. "What about you, Amara?" The room went still. All eyes turned to her. Amara's throat tightened, but she forced herself to speak. I want to be an astronaut." A pause, then laughter, not from the students at first, but from Keller himself, a sharp, dismissive chuckle. "An astronaut," he repeated, shaking his head. "Sweetheart, that's ambitious. You know how hard that is. That's not really realistic." The students followed his cue, snickering. Amara's cheeks burned. "But Keller cut her off. No, it's fine to dream. But maybe pick something more grounded, something you can actually do." His tone dripped with condescension. The laughter grew louder. Zoe, Amara's best friend, shot her a sympathetic look, but it did little to soften the sting. Amara gripped her notebook tighter. "I can do it," she whispered. Keller raised his eyebrows. "Excuse me," she swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "I said I can do it." The room fell silent again, the laughter dying, but Keller smirked, amused at her defiance. "Well, we'll see, won't we?" Narration slipped in like a cold wind. In that moment, the classroom stopped being a place of learning. It became a stage where power mocked innocence, and silence rewarded cruelty. The bell rang, releasing the students, but the echo of Keller's laughter followed Amara out the door. The hallway buzzed with noise as lockers slammed and sneakers squeaked against the linoleum floor. Amara kept her head down, hugging her books to her chest. She hoped to slip by unnoticed, but the laughter followed her like a shadow. "There she is," a boy snickered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Astronaut girl." Another voice chimed in. "Careful, Amara, don't float away into space." A group of kids erupted in laughter, mimicking rocket sounds. 2, 1 blast off. One of them jeered, throwing a crumpled paper ball at her. Amara flinched. She wanted to disappear into her locker, but her body froze. Zoe pushed through the crowd, her small frame defiant. "Leave her alone." The ringleader rolled his eyes. "Relax, Zoe. We're just having fun." "She's the one who thinks she's going to be flying spaceships," Zoe glared. "At least she has dreams bigger than being a jerk in a hallway." The laughter dimmed, but the sting remained. Amara pulled Zoe aside, whispering, "Don't, it's not worth it." Zoe lowered her voice. "Why didn't you say anything back in class? He humiliated you." "I couldn't," Amara murmured. Her throat felt tight, the words choking her. Zoe frowned. "You have to tell someone. Tell your mom." Amara shook her head quickly. "No, she'd just think I'm weak, or she'll storm up here and make it worse." "She wouldn't think that." "Yes, she would. You don't get it, Zoe. People already look at me different. If I complain, they'll just say I'm making excuses." Zoe's silence was heavy. Finally, she sighed. "Then, at least don't give up. Promise me you won't let him kill your dream." Amara hesitated. Her eyes burned, but she nodded. "I promise." Later that afternoon, Keller lounged in the staff lounge, sipping coffee. A fellow teacher, Ms. Ramirez, sat across from him. I heard about your little career talk, she said lightly. The kids couldn't stop talking about it. Keller smirked. Oh, you mean Amara? She said she wanted to be an astronaut. It was adorable. Adorable. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. Come on, she's not exactly NASA material. We both know how these things go. Some kids just need a reality check. Ramirez's face hardened. Or maybe some kids just need encouragement. Keller waved her off. You can't coddle them forever. Better they learn the truth now. Narration whispered in. Truth, in his mouth, was nothing but prejudice dressed as wisdom. Back at home, Amara sat on her bed, staring at her ceiling. Zoe's words echoed in her mind. Tell your mom. Her mother's voice called from the kitchen, warm and steady. Amara, dinner's ready. Amara wiped her eyes quickly and forced a smile as she joined her. Yvonne Carter didn't press, but her gaze lingered on her daughter, searching, knowing. Everything okay, baby? She asked gently. Amara hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, just tired. Yvonne's lips curved into a faint smile. All right, but remember, even tired stars still shine. Amara's chest tightened. She looked away, hiding the storm inside her. The Carter household was small but warm, filled with the faint smell of books and fresh laundry. Amara sat at the kitchen table, pushing her peas around her plate. Yvonne watched her daughter carefully, her hands folded, her gaze steady. You've been quiet, Yvonne said softly. Too quiet. Amara forced a smile. I'm fine, Mom. Just school stuff. School stuff. Yvonne tilted her head. Math test. Group project. Amara shook her head quickly. No, nothing like that. Her fork scraped against the plate. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not empty. Yvonne leaned forward. Amara, you don't have to carry everything alone. Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't want to sound weak. Yvonne's brow furrowed. Weak? Why would you think that? Amara finally met her mother's eyes, tears brimming. Because if I tell people when they hurt me, it's like I'm proving them right, like I can't handle it. Yvonne reached across the table, gently placing her hand over her daughter's sweetheart. Telling the truth about pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you honest. And honesty is strength most people don't have. Amara's voice cracked. But they laugh at me, Mom. They laugh like I don't belong in space. Yvonne's chest tightened, but she kept her expression calm. Let them laugh. Stars don't ask permission to shine. They shine because that's what they're made to do. Amara swallowed hard, whispering, What if I'm not made for it? You are, Yvonne said firmly. I see it in you every day. Later, Amara sat on her bed, hugging her stuffed bear. She scribbled in her notebook, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. The words filled the page like a mantra, shaky but determined. Through the doorway, Yvonne watched quietly, her heart aching. She thought of her own years in university, the voices that told her she didn't belong in physics labs, that she was out of place. She remembered nights when she nearly gave up, but she never had. Narration flowed like memory. Resilience was not taught in lectures. It was learned in silence, in battles no one saw, in the weight of every insult carried without breaking. Yvonne closed the door gently. She didn't reveal her title, her credentials, her role at NASA. Not yet. Amara needed to find her fire before knowing where it came from. The next morning, over breakfast, Yvonne tried again. You know, when I was your age, she began, buttering toast slowly, I had a teacher who told me girls couldn't be scientists. He said our brains weren't built for it. Amara's eyes widened. He really said that? Yvonne nodded. And for a while, I almost believed him. Almost. But then I decided his opinion wasn't going to decide my future. Amara whispered, What happened to him? A faint smile crossed Yvonne's lips. He retired. I kept going. I never saw him again, but sometimes I wish I had, just so he could see. Amara leaned closer. See what? Yvonne's eyes gleamed. That the world doesn't belong to people who build walls. It belongs to those who break them. Amara stared at her mother for a long moment. The weight inside her chest felt lighter, not gone, but bearable. She whispered, I'll try. Yvonne squeezed her hand. That's all I ask. The classroom buzzed with restless chatter as Mr. Keller stood at the front, clutching a stack of flyers. His voice carried over the noise, sharp and commanding. Listen up, everyone. Big news. He slapped the flyers on the desk. The annual district science fair is coming up. Projects, experiments, models, the whole deal. Winners will move on to regionals. Excited whispers spread like wildfire. Does that mean prizes? A boy asked. Of course, Keller replied with a smirk. Scholarships, recognition, opportunities, this is serious business. He began passing out the flyers, his tone brightening when he addressed certain students. Ethan, I expect great things from you. You've got a natural mind for mechanics. Jessica, you'd crush this with your chemistry project from last semester. Liam, robotics would be perfect for you. Each name earned a nod of approval. Then his gaze slid past Amara, like she wasn't even there. Her hand lifted hesitantly. Can I sign up to? The room quieted. Keller looked at her, almost amused. Amara, the science fair is a lot of work, very competitive. Maybe you should focus on keeping up in class first. Her cheeks heated. I can handle it. He tilted his head. Space is complicated, sweetheart. Orbital mechanics, propulsion systems, navigation, not exactly middle school level. Muffled laughter rippled across the room. Amara swallowed, her voice small but steady. I want to try. Keller shrugged. Suit yourself. Just don't be disappointed when you realize it's harder than it looks. At lunch, Zoe sat across from Amara, slamming her juice box on the table. Unbelievable. He didn't say that to anyone else. Amara picked at her sandwich. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not ready. No. Zoe leaned in, eyes blazing. He's trying to scare you off. That's all it is. If you back down, he wins. Amara hesitated. But what if I fail? Then at least you failed chasing the stars instead of letting him lock you on the ground. The words struck deep. Amara looked away, whispering, I don't want them to laugh again. They will, Zoe said firmly, but one day, they'll choke on it. After school, Keller stood in the teacher's lounge, leaning against the counter as he spoke with another staff member. Amara Carter wants to join the science fair, he said, chuckling under his breath. The other teacher frowned. What's wrong with that? She wants to do space science. Astronaut nonsense. It's unrealistic. Unrealistic for her, or unrealistic in general. Keller shrugged. Be honest. Do you really see her making it that far? She embarrass herself. Better she sticks to something manageable. Narration cut through. Gatekeeping rarely looks like a slammed door. Sometimes it's a smile, a shrug, a suggestion to dream smaller. But the lock clicks all the same. That night, Amara sat at her desk. The science fair flyer spread open. Her pencil tapped against the paper. Her mother's voice drifted from the hallway. What's that? The science fair, Amara said quietly. Mr. Keller doesn't think I should enter. Yvonne walked in, leaning against the doorway. And what do you think? Amara stared at the flyer. I think I want to. Yvonne smiled faintly. Then do it. Don't wait for permission from people who never wanted you to fly in the first place. Amara looked up. But what if I'm not good enough? Yvonne's tone sharpened with conviction. Greatness isn't about being good enough for them. It's about proving you're good enough for yourself. Amara's eyes softened. She nodded slowly, gripping her pencil tighter. She began to write down her first ideas. And for the first time in days, the laughter in her head was drowned out by the sound of possibility. Amara's bedroom slowly transformed into a miniature lab. Cardboard boxes became compartments, string and glue turned into models, and her notebooks overflowed with sketches of rockets and navigation systems. One evening, Yvonne peeked inside. Looks like mission control in here. Amara blushed. I'm just trying to figure out how rockets change direction in space. Yvonne walked closer, careful not to intrude too much. Well, they don't exactly steer like cars. No air in space. What else could push them? Amara bit her lip, thinking. Engines, thrusters. Yvonne smiled. Exactly. Small bursts of thrust change orientation. Imagine you're swimming. Every push moves you differently. Amara's eyes lit up. She scribbled notes furiously. That makes sense. Yvonne didn't say she had explained this concept 100 times in NASA briefings. She only said, keep thinking like that. Don't just look for answers, look for how to ask better questions. At school, however, the environment grew colder. Keller handed back graded assignments one morning. Class average B, he announced. Some of you did very well, others, not so much. Amara flipped over her paper. See meanness, her jaw dropped. Mr. Keller, she whispered. I thought I explained the formula right. He leaned over her desk, his tone clipped. You rushed, careless mistakes. If you want higher grades, pay closer attention. Amara's stomach nodded. She had triple-checked that assignment. At lunch, Zoe leaned over her shoulder. He gave you a C. Are you kidding me? You solved half the stuff we went over together. Amara frowned. Maybe I made mistakes. No, Zoe said flatly. He's trying to crush your confidence. Don't let him. Whispers swirled in the hallways. Amara's doing a space project. Didn't Keller say she doesn't stand a chance? She's so delusional. Amara kept walking, clutching her books tighter. But inside, a quiet flame grew. Every sneer, every whisper, every grade that didn't match her effort, they all pressed down on her, but didn't extinguish her. Narration murmured, "Some resistances are loud, others are silent. Both are revolutions in their own way." One afternoon, Keller called her to his desk. "So, Amara, what's this project you're working on?" She hesitated. "Spacecraft navigation systems." He chuckled. "Ambitious, isn't it? Don't you think something simpler might be? Say for a baking soda volcano, maybe?" Her face tightened. "I want to do this one." "Suit yourself," he said with a shrug. "But don't come crying when the judges don't understand your project." Amara clenched her fists under the desk. "They will." His smirk widened. "And what if they laugh?" She met his eyes, voice steady. "Then I'll keep going anyway." For a moment, Keller froze, surprised by her quiet defiance. Then he waved her off, dismissive. That night, Amara worked late into the evening. Glue stained her fingers, scraps of paper littered her desk, but her model slowly took shape. Yvonne appeared with 2 mugs of cocoa. "Don't burn yourself out." "I'm fine," Amara said, yawning. I want it to be perfect." Yvonne placed the mug beside her. "Perfection isn't the goal. Persistence is." Amara looked up. "Do you really think I can do this?" Yvonne knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "Babe, I don't just think. I know." The classroom hummed with chatter as students set up for a group activity. Amara's project notebook rested on her desk, filled with equations and sketches she had worked on late into the night. Mr. Keller strolled between rows, stopping near her desk. His voice was loud enough for others to hear. "Still scribbling about rockets, Amara?" he asked, smirking. She nodded quietly. "Yes, for the science fair." Keller chuckled. "You know, I saw your notes yesterday. Half of it doesn't make sense. Thrusters, orbital velocity, complicated stuff for a middle. Don't you think you're a little out of your depth?" Snickers spread through the class. Amara's chest tightened, but she didn't answer. Keller leaned closer. "Maybe focus on something achievable. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of the judges, do you?" This time, the laughter was louder. Amara's hand shook around her pencil. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "I'm not embarrassed." The room hushed. Keller arched a brow. "Excuse me." Amara's voice grew stronger. "I said I'm not embarrassed. I've worked hard. Just because you don't believe in me doesn't mean I can't do it." The class went silent, eyes wide. For a moment, Keller blinked, caught off guard. Then his expression hardened. "Amara, that's enough. You're being disruptive." Her heart pounded. "No, I'm not. I'm standing up for myself." Gasps rippled across the room. Keller straightened, his jaw tight. "Out in the hall, now." Amara froze. "I said now." His tone cracked, like a whip. She gathered her things and walked to the hallway. Every step heavy but steady. Minutes later, Keller emerged, holding a clipboard, his pen scratched across the paper. "What are you writing?" Amara asked quietly. "A disciplinary report," he said flatly. "You disrespected me in class. That won't go unnoticed." Her chest burned. "I wasn't disrespectful. I was just, you raised your voice. You disrupted learning. That's all I need to write down." His tone was cold, final. Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but she clenched her fists. "That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Amara." He shoved the paper onto the clipboard. "You'll learn that soon enough." Narration sliced in. "Power, when cornered, does not yield. It punishes. It silences. It rewrites the truth in ink and calls it order." At lunch, Zoe found Amara sitting alone, staring at the crumpled copy of the report. "What happened?" Zoe asked, snatching the paper. Her eyes scanned it, fury rising. "He called you disruptive. That's insane." Amara's voice cracked. "He's going to ruin me. My mom will see this. She'll think I messed up." "No, she won't," Zoe snapped. "She'll know the truth. You have to tell her what happened." Amara shook her head. "She already worries too much." "Amara, listen to me." Zoe gripped her arm. "You can't fight this alone anymore. He's crossing the line." Amara stared at the paper again. The ink bled into her vision like chains tightening around her. For the first time, she whispered, "Maybe you're right." That evening, at home, Yvonne spotted the crumpled paper sticking out of Amara's backpack. She pulled it free, smoothing it out with careful fingers. Her eyes narrowed as she read the words. Disruptive, disrespectful, failure to comply. She looked at her daughter. Amara, what is this? Amara froze, her throat closing. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then the dam broke. Her words tumbled out in sobs. He laughs at me, Mom. He tells me I can't do it. He makes the whole class laugh too. And when I finally said something back, he wrote that. Yvonne's expression didn't soften, it sharpened. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes darkened with a controlled fury Amara had never seen before. Enough is enough, Yvonne said quietly. Amara wiped her tears. What are you going to do? Yvonne folded the report neatly, sliding it into her purse. Her voice was calm, steady, unshakable. I'm going to remind your teacher who he's dealing with. The parent-teacher conference room smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. A long oval table stretched across the center, with a row of chairs lining one side. Mr. Keller sat at the head, arms folded, his smirk already in place. Amara sat nervously beside her mother. Yvonne rested one hand on her daughter's shoulder, her posture calm, steady, controlled. Well, Keller began, clearing his throat, I suppose we should get right to it. Your daughter's been disruptive. Amara's head lowered. Yvonne's eyes never left him. Disruptive how? Keller shuffled his papers. She raised her voice in class. Argued with me. I had no choice but to file a report. Argued, Yvonne repeated softly. Or defended herself. Keller blinked. Excuse me. Yvonne leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but sharp. You mocked her dream. You dismissed her project. You encouraged the class to laugh at her. And when she finally pushed back, you called it disruption. A flicker of surprise crossed Keller's face. Now hold on. I never mocked her, Amara whispered. You laughed. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Keller cleared his throat, his smirk faltering. Look, Mrs. Carter, I only want what's best for my students. Sometimes that means being realistic. Space science is complicated. Yvonne cut in. Too complicated for her. Yes, Keller said quickly. Exactly. It's unrealistic. These kids need achievable goals, something grounded, not astronaut fantasies. For the first time, Yvonne smiled. Not warmly, but with quiet fire. Funny, I spend my days helping astronauts navigate those very fantasies. The room went silent. Keller blinked. I'm sorry. Yvonne's voice was smooth, unshaken. I'm Dr. Yvonne Carter, aerospace engineer, NASA, Johnson Space Center. I lead a team that designs navigation protocols for spacecraft, thrusters, orbital mechanics, trajectories, the very subjects you told my daughter she couldn't understand. Keller's smirk collapsed. Narration slid in. Arrogance rarely fears until it collides with truth, and when it does, it cracks. Keller stammered. I didn't realize. Of course you didn't, Yvonne said, her voice rising just slightly. Because you never looked past your assumptions long enough to see her. You saw a little black girl in your classroom and decided for her what was possible. That isn't teaching, that's sabotage. Amara's eyes widened at her mother's words. Firm, sharp, unapologetic. Keller opened his mouth, but Yvonne didn't let him speak. You think space is too big for her. Yvonne's gaze cut straight through him. It's not, but this classroom, this smallness you've tried to trap her in, that's too small for her future. Keller sat back, face pale, his voice cracked. I was only trying to protect her from failure. Yvonne snapped. Failure isn't the enemy. Small-minded teachers are. The silence that followed was suffocating. Yvonne stood slowly, her hand still resting on Amara's shoulder. My daughter will compete in that science fair, and she will succeed, not because of you, but in spite of you. Amara felt her chest swell, fear giving way to pride. Keller swallowed hard, nodding stiffly. Of course, she's welcome to participate. Yvonne's smile returned, sharper than before. She was always welcome. You were just too blind to see it. She turned to Amara, her voice softening. Ready to go, baby? Amara nodded, her small hand slipping into her mother's. Together, they walked out, leaving Keller in the suffocating silence of his own unraveling authority. Narration closed in like a verdict. Some walls crumble, not with explosions, but with truth spoken plainly, and when they fall, the view of the sky is undeniable. The school gym buzzed with voices, the hum of projectors, and the scent of poster board markers. Rows of trifold boards lined the floor, each one covered in experiments about volcanoes, plant growth, and baking soda rockets. At the far end stood Amara's display, sleek, clean, with bold letters that read, Mission, beyond Earth's gravity. A 3D model of a shuttle sat on the table, wires connected to a tablet that simulated orbital patterns. Amara's stomach twisted, but Yvonne knelt beside her. You don't need to be loud, her mother whispered. Just be clear. Speak with the same wonder you feel when you look at the stars. That's more powerful than anything. Amara nodded, clutching her note cards. The loudspeaker crackled. Next up, Amara Carter, 7th grade. Her legs trembled as she stepped forward. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some curious, some doubtful. Keller stood in the back, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Amara drew a shaky breath. Good evening, she began. Her voice wavered, then steadied. My project is called Mission Beyond Earth's Gravity. It explores how spacecraft use thrusters to change direction once they're in orbit. See, in space, you can't just turn the wheel like a car. Every movement depends on physics, on thrust, velocity, and trajectory. Her hands moved as she spoke, pointing to the shuttle model. The tablet displayed an animation of a small craft orbiting Earth, adjusting paths with tiny bursts. A boy in the front whispered, "Whoa." Amara pressed on. I built a program to simulate those maneuvers. Here, when the shuttle fires its side thruster, you can see how the orbit shifts. She tapped the screen. The shuttle image glowed, tilted, and curved into a new path. Gasps rippled. Parents leaned closer. Judges scribbled notes. One judge raised his hand. Amara, how did you learn the math for orbital mechanics at your age? Amara hesitated, then lifted her chin. My mom works at NASA. She taught me that big ideas don't belong to adults only. They belong to anyone willing to learn. Yvonne's eyes glistened. A second judge leaned forward. And this simulation, you coded it yourself? Yes, Amara said firmly. I used a physics engine in Python. My mom showed me the basics, but I worked out the thrust calculations by myself. It took weeks to get right. Murmurs of approval spread through the gym. Keller shifted uncomfortably in the back. Another judge smiled. Why space, Amara? Why not something closer to Earth? Amara paused. Her voice softened, almost trembling. Because when I look at the sky, I don't just see stars. I see possibility. And I don't want anyone to tell me my dreams are too big. Not ever again. The silence that followed was electric. Even the students who had giggled in class now stared at her with wide eyes. Narration slid in. Sometimes, a single child's voice can sound louder than an entire classroom's laughter. The head judge cleared his throat. Extraordinary work, truly. Amara bowed her head slightly, whispering, "Thank you," as she stepped down. Yvonne embraced her. You were magnificent. I was so scared, Amara whispered. You turned fear into fire, Yvonne murmured back. That's what astronauts do. The crowd moved on to the next project, but eyes lingered on Amara's display. Students pointed. Judges exchanged impressed nods, and whispers spread. She's going to win. In the back, Keller stood frozen, his face pale. A fellow teacher leaned toward him. You told me she was disruptive. That didn't look disruptive to me. Keller forced a hollow chuckle. Beginner's luck. But no one was listening. The narration cut sharp. Poetic justice does not always arrive as punishment. Sometimes, it arrives as undeniable brilliance, shining in the very space where someone tried to dim the light. Amara looked back once more at her project, her eyes catching the glow of the tablet screen, her stars, her orbit, her path. And for the first time, the ceiling of that gym didn't feel like a limit. It felt like the ground floor of the sky. The principal's office smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. Mr. Keller sat stiffly in a chair, his jaw tight, sweat gathering at his temples. Across from him, Principal Harris leafed through a folder of notes. Double quotes, Mr. Keller, Harris began, his tone measured. I've received several calls since the science fair. Keller forced a smile. Parents excited about the event, I'm sure. Harris's eyes narrowed. Excited, yes, but also concerned about you. Keller's smile faltered. About me. Harris closed the folder. Apparently, you dismissed a student's project, laughed at her dream, called it unrealistic. Keller bristled. I was being practical. These kids, practical. Harris's voice sharpened. She built a functioning orbital simulation. She had half the judges speechless. That's not fantasy, Keller. That's genius. Keller's face reddened. With all due respect, Principal Harris, I run my classroom the way I see fit. And now your classroom is under review. Harris snapped. The words landed like a gavel. By the teacher's lounge, whispers rippled. You saw the girls' project, one teacher whispered. Incredible. and Keller. Another scoffed, told her she couldn't do it. Figures he's always been like that. Masks it as discipline. But the conversation trailed off as Keller entered. Silence flooded the room. Keller dropped his lunch bag on the table. Something funny. No one answered. A young teacher muttered, "Not anymore." Keller clenched his jaw. Narration cut in. When power begins to slip, it doesn't fall with thunder. It slips in whispers, in sidelong glances, in silence too heavy to bear. That evening, Keller stormed into his classroom, empty except for Amara's display board still leaning against the wall. He stared at the bold letters, "Mission, beyond Earth's gravity." He muttered under his breath, "Beginner's luck," nothing more. But the words rang hollow. The door creaked open. Mrs. Lopez, a fellow teacher, peeked in. "Keller," she said quietly, "parents are organizing a complaint." He spun. "A complaint? They're saying you humiliated her, that you've discouraged kids before." The Carters aren't the only ones speaking up. Keller's face drained of color. "This is absurd. I've given years to this school." Mrs. Lopez's gaze was steady. "Years don't excuse harm." She left him alone with the board, the silence pressing in. The next morning, Keller was called back into Principal Harris's office. Yvonne sat in the corner, calm as ever. Amara sat beside her, holding a notebook. Harris folded his hands. "Mr. Keller, I've spoken with the district. Given the nature of the complaints, you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation." Keller's voice cracked. "Administrative leave? Over one girl's tantrum?" Amara's head snapped up. It wasn't a tantrum. Her small voice carried across the office like a blade. Yvonne placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, but didn't silence her. Amara's voice trembled, but she pressed on. "You laughed at me. You made the whole class laugh. You told me I couldn't do what I love. That wasn't teaching. That was cruel." The room fell still. Keller sputtered, "She's exaggerating." Harris raised a hand. "Enough. I've heard enough." Narration slipped in. The wall Keller had built around his authority wasn't destroyed by adults, but by the child he underestimated. A single, truth-telling voice, cutting sharper than any report. Yvonne rose slowly. "Mr. Keller, someday my daughter will step into a spacecraft and look down on Earth, while you—" She let the sentence hang. "Will still be explaining why you laughed at a child." Keller's mouth opened, but no words came. Principal Harris stood. "This meeting is over. Mr. Keller, you'll collect your things." The sound of the decision echoed louder than a slammed gavel in the hallway. Students peeked from classroom doors as Keller walked by, box in his arms, eyes downcast. His once commanding stride was now a shuffle. Whispers followed him like shadows. "Is he fired?" they said. He laughed at Amara. "Can you believe that?" Keller's ears burned. He kept walking, but every step felt heavier. The box digging into his arms. At the far end of the hall, Amara stood with her mother. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just watched him go, steady, unblinking. And Keller looked away first. Narration closed in, sharp as judgment. Some collapses aren't loud. They happen in the quiet undoing of a man's authority, when the voices he once silenced rise louder than he can bear. That is how walls fall. Not with fire, but with truth. The auditorium hummed with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and students filled the rows as the Science Fair Awards ceremony began. Banners hung from the rafters, celebrating curiosity, inspiring futures. Amara sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly together. Beside her, Yvonne squeezed her shoulder. "Breathe," her mother whispered. "No matter what happens, you've already won." Amara nodded, her heart hammering. The principal stepped up to the podium. "Tonight, we celebrate innovation, persistence, and imagination. These projects remind us of something essential, that possibility knows no boundaries, no walls." His eyes flickered briefly toward the back, where Keller sat slumped, alone. His reputation already frayed. The room hushed as the envelopes were opened. In third place, cheers erupted. Names were called. Students clapped. In second place, another burst of applause. Then the pause that stretched like eternity. And first place, Amara Carter. Mission, beyond Earth's gravity. The gym thundered with applause. Amara froze, breath caught in her chest. Yvonne nudged her gently. "Go on, baby." Amara stood, legs trembling, and walked to the stage. The lights felt hot, the sound of applause deafening. The principal handed her a medal and certificate. "Outstanding work, Amara, truly inspiring," she whispered. "Thank you." Turning to the microphone, she hesitated. The crowd quieted. I didn't think I'd be standing here," she said, voice shaking. When I first shared my dream, people laughed. They told me space was too big for me. But my mom reminded me that the only thing too small was their vision. Gasps and murmurs rippled. Keller's head sank lower. Amara's voice grew stronger. I want every kid here to know, don't let anyone tell you your dream is impossible. Don't let their laughter decide your future. The stars belong to all of us. The room erupted in applause. Louder than before, Amara stepped off stage, metal glinting around her neck. Yvonne swept her into a hug, tears slipping down her cheeks. You were brilliant, Yvonne whispered. I was terrified, Amara admitted. And you still shined, her mother said. That's courage. That's what astronauts are made of. Outside the gym, the night sky stretched vast and endless. Stars scattered across the darkness. Amara and Yvonne stood together, looking up. Mom, Amara said softly, do you think I really can? One day, Yvonne smiled. I don't think, I know. You've already broken the first chains, the ones of doubt and fear. Space, that's just the next step. Amara leaned against her mother. Then, I'll keep climbing. Narration slipped in like starlight. Some victories are measured in medals, others, in the silence left behind by those who once laughed. But the greatest victories live in the unbroken will of a child who refuses to shrink. In the distance, Keller walked out of the building alone, his figure small, swallowed by shadows. No applause followed him. No voices defended him. His downfall was quiet, but complete. Meanwhile, Amara's laughter rose into the night air, light, free, untethered. She gazed at the stars and whispered, someday, I'll meet you. And for the first time, the universe felt within reach.